Hi, and welcome to How to Be Human, where we are still chasing the answer to the question whether we really are ourselves as adults. In my previous video, I elaborated a little more in depth about the composition of our basic personality patterns, which roughly consists of our survival strategy, patterns and things we picked up from others, and our own individual traits that we developed independently. But if you look at that, survival strategies, they are very much reliant on our surroundings and how we grew up. Our copied patterns is imitation, so it depends on others, and sometimes, I mentioned that previously, it is, if you look at a kid, it is really like looking at yourself or at the parent or peer. So copy-paste, not really ourselves. And the only thing that seems to be left, that seems to be us, not somebody else, is our individual traits we love and we used a lot, and so we trained them really well. Yeah, 2 out of 3 doesn't seem like much, right? And if we consider the sort of chemical priming that takes place before we're born, it's even like 3 out of 4, so even less us and more everything else. Good news is we can always change the things about ourselves we no longer need or don't like or are not supporting us in any way. And the first step to do this, as always, is to become aware. So we have to become aware which pattern out of those 3 most prevalent in us. To help you out a little, maybe to make it a little bit more understandable, if you had a hard time growing up, maybe even a traumatic childhood, you're probably very focused on survival and survival tactics. So find out what strategy you were using to make sure you were safe and see how much of that is still showing up in your everyday life as an adult. On the other hand, if you had a fairly okay or good childhood, but still never really felt like you belonged, like you didn't feel like you belonged to your family maybe, or as a teenager you never had that group you were part of, and it always felt like kind of wrong, but still you tried, and maybe you found a group, no matter what it was, whether it was the science group, the geek club, the sporty people, the jocks. You probably did what you could to fit in. So you were probably wearing the same kind of clothes, doing the same kind of things, watching the same kind of movies, listening same kind of music, whatever it is that attracted you that group in the first place. And that's the way you made sure they accepted you as one of their own and you belong and had the safety of a group. Nothing bad about that. And the third one is, if your individual traits are very well developed, you probably had a good childhood with a lot of support and a lot of freedom to try out things. So you had the necessary safety that you could be yourself, and you knew if something went wrong, there was always somebody you could go to and they would tell you everything's gonna be okay. Now, that might sound like people who had a good childhood are still bedded on roses, like they don't have any problems as adults at all. I can tell you from experience that is not so. And let's use a little crass example, like a hard one. If you were really pampered as a child. You got everything you wanted. You never really had to dig your heels in and work hard for something. You might lack a certain amount of discipline. You're just so used that if you don't feel like doing or finishing something anymore, it was always okay. Yeah, just leave it. Either your mom or dad finished it, or it didn't matter. You could just, drop it and use something else that piqued your curiosity and do that as long as you wanted to, and then drop that and go on to the next. So lack of discipline, and with it comes superficiality. And that's something that doesn't really enable you to go deep enough if you want to change something or work on something for a longer time period. And maybe in a job prospect, they might think like, not good enough. Or worst case scenario, you could go towards narcissism or other types of personality disorder that are based on never really having enough boundaries so you had to adjust. You could always do what you wanted. You always had your free will, and nobody ever said that stop till here and no further. And yeah, we all know narcissists are not the easiest people to be around. So deep down inside, there's probably a lot of loneliness. Of course, they don't realize that. And yeah, because they're the best. But actually, they do have problems too. Whichever way you are inclined to. So whether you're the tough survivor or the good observer who picks up on minute details in other people's behavior, so you can make sure you can adapt them and fit in, or you're the individualist who is fearless in being themselves but might need a little more fighting spirits if push comes to shove. We all can learn different things from these different patterns. And if we find a pattern that we don't like, that's not serving us anymore or might be even harmful in a way, we can always change that. And if we are happy the way we are, well, nobody tells you have to change anything. It's up to you how much individual you want to be or not. Well, we are almost at the end of this month's topic and very, very close to the final answer to our question. I hope you liked this part, and I really hope to see you for the last one, which will be up soon. Until then, lots of love and light from my heart to yours. Take care.